Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to my podcast, the Wake Up Bright podcast with me, April Lauren. I am so excited to share today's episode. Today's guest is such a beautiful person inside and out. She has recently made some big changes, and let's talk about her for just a little bit. Sara, known as Weight Loss Sara on YouTube and Instagram, struggled with obesity and binge eating disorder most of her life. In 2020, alarmed by the pandemic and COVID's impact on obese individuals, she decided that she was sick of fad diet, shakes, pills, and restrictive weight loss programs that seemed to set her up to fail. And she decided to take matters into her own hands. As she says in her YouTube intro, she's losing weight her way, which recently includes gastric sleeve weight loss surgery. She shares her weight loss journey on both YouTube and Instagram. She's also a mom and just such a kind and caring person. Talking to her in this episode was just such a fun day. As I just shared, got weight loss surgery. And in this episode, she's going to share her story. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the podcast, Sara. I'm so happy.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait for her to share more about her story. We were just kind of casually chatting though about music. And now I feel like the moment might be gone, but who knows? We're talking about music that was popular when we were younger. And earlier I was listening to this song in the car by Salt and Pepper. It's called What a Man, I think. And I'm jamming out into the car, what a man, right? And dancing in my car. And I felt super cool. And I'm like, you look like an old lady dancing in your car to really old music. And yeah. And then
Now we know all these songs are probably on the oldies station.
Yeah. So, and even beyond that, because Salt and Pepper, I don't know how old I was when Salt and Pepper hit big, but I was a little kid.
You had to be, it was third or fourth grade for me. And you're just a few years younger than I am. So yeah.
It was in the 90s. And I like Mariah Carey. I was obsessed with In Vogue. Do you ever listen to In Vogue?
Yes.
They are amazing. I've been listening to them a lot too. I had YouTube set to the In Vogue playlist, and that's when Salt and Pepper came on. And I'm like, I'm going to repeat this one.
There were all of these, those, it was before, that's what I call music or that's what they call music. Those CDs before that, they used to have these Dance Mix 95 or Dance Mix 94 CD. There was one for every year. Yeah. And it would have all these great songs. And somebody at work mentioned the 95 one. And I was looking at these songs and I was like, this is 30 years ago. How did this happen? Where this song can't be that old. Just really freaked me out.
That reminds me of what I was thinking. So we were chatting about this and I was like, maybe we should start recording and think about when we were young and we thought about music from the 80s or from the 70s. And that's what kids now are thinking. If you're 10 years old, you were born in 2012. And so music from the 80s is ancient to a 12-year-old, so ancient. And I'm like, how is it that it's old, but those people who were really big, Aerosmith, because Aerosmith was still big in the 90s, maybe even in the 2000s, but they were really old when they were big in my lifetime, but it exceeds way beyond that. I don't know, my mind's just blown.
I was just gonna say, it is mind blowing. We watched the first Jurassic Park movie the other day. Okay. And I was like, oh, I love this movie. And then I'm, I think it's on the Peacock app or whatever. And it shows the year and it says 1993. And I'm like, this movie's going to be 30 years old. And there's those the two kids in that movie, right? I'm like, these kids are in their 40s now.
Oh my God. That's crazy to think about. I thought about that a couple years ago when I watched Hocus Pocus because I love that movie. And I'm like, I'm like, how old are these kids now?
Because they're not kids.
No, definitely not. What made you decide to start creating content or sharing your story on YouTube?
Yeah, I love that question because it's kind of, I've had an interesting journey, for sure. But I started YouTube in August of 2019. And the purpose of my channel then, I was going to have vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So a weight loss surgery, if you've never heard of that before. And I was going to take people through the whole thing, right? Like going to the seminar and going through insurance. Well, it ended up falling through. My insurance didn't end up covering it. And I think it was something like $25,000 is what it was going to cost. And at the time, I didn't have the most amazing job. And I certainly didn't have that kind of money laying around. And I didn't feel right taking out like a loan of that size at that time. So I was just like, well, there goes that. I got super depressed, gained some more weight over the next 3 months after that. I think in September is when it actually fell through. And I was just like, well, this YouTube channel thing, it was fun while it lasted. And that was that. And then in January of 2020, right, the pandemic happened. And I kept seeing all over the news, like, and from, the information coming from the CDC, it was like, if you have one of these comorbidities, you have to be really careful. And obesity was like the big one that they kept talking about, being, you could have serious complications of COVID if you have one of these things. And it freaked me out, frankly. I was really, really scared. So at that time, I'm going to say it was probably like the end of February, early March 2020, I was like, I need to get serious. I need to figure out a way to lose weight. And I've got to do this in a way that I don't have to keep trying to lose weight over and over again. Like I have to figure something out. So in March, I started kind of figuring out, like, do I want to do a diet? Do I want to do this? I had done keto in 2017 and did really well with that for about 6 months. And then as soon as I ate a potato, I feel like I gained all the weight back. That's not how it went down, obviously. But so I knew I didn't want to go back to like one of these like kind of diets that was temporary. I really wanted to do something that was going to be a lifestyle change. And so I said, you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are struggling like I am to figure out what the heck to do. Like you just want to live your life, but healthily. So why don't I kick up the YouTube channel again and I'll just share my story. And at the time I thought maybe like a handful of people might watch it, which is kind of silly because I watch a lot of YouTube weight loss channels myself. So I don't know why I thought nobody would watch me per se. But I started it then. And which, I've been doing it consistently now for 2 years. And what's kind of fun about my YouTube journey is I really went full circle because just on the 19th of August, I ended up having vertical sleeve gastrectomy after trying to lose weight on my own for 2 years. So the whole thing kind of all came back around to where it started just recently. I was able to lose just shy of 30 pounds before I had the weight loss surgery. And now I'm hoping that the VSG is going to help me lose the last 70 pounds that I have to lose to reach my 100-pound weight loss goal.
So going back, just to ask a few questions. I too did keto. It's funny because it's about the same timeline. And I first learned about keto from a Halle Berry video. And she was talking about, I think she was answering a question like why she looks like so good at her age. And she isn't, and wasn't even like that old, but she looked amazing, looks amazing. And she has type 1 diabetes and she starts talking about keto. Then I hurt my leg and my surgeon recommended something like keto to help with swelling and then to help with my weight. And so I started doing that and I didn't sustain it. And then my husband deployed and I went back to keto because it was so easy for me to do when I did it. It was very easy to just do keto and I was super successful like you though. So it only lasted for me. The weight loss lasted about 6 months and then I stalled and I continued to try to lose weight. I was just eating too many calories on keto. So it just stopped being effective for me.
Oh.
And tracking is always triggering and I didn't want to track. So if I would have tracked, maybe I would have continued forward. But my husband came home from his deployment and it wasn't his coming home that made me stop. It's just, we went out to eat and I'm like, that roll looks really good. And I started eating off thinking I was going to go back. And it just, like you said, it was not sustainable for me. My question here is, what led you to want to try keto? Like what made you feel like that might work for you? Were you approaching it to be long-term when you started? Like what led you to even try it?
I very distinctly remember that moment. Actually, I was in a job that I was very unhappy at. So that was causing me quite a bit of depression. And I remember, I think it was like a Friday night or something. And I was sitting on my couch and I had eaten like 4 Pop-Tarts, just sat there eating Pop-Tarts and chocolate milk. And I felt so guilty after I did it, like so guilty. I'm crying, like full blown crying. And I'm just like, I don't know what popped in my head. I think I was thinking of Atkins at the moment, but it actually, like now they more commonly call it keto, very similar diets, I think. But I was like, I'm just not
Atkins.
Yeah.
I bought the book. I remember the feeling of buying that book because it's like before the internet existed, but it was nothing like what it is now. And I remember I bought the book and I was like, this is going to change everything.
I definitely had the Atkins book too. But so I'm crying after eating a bunch of Pop-Tarts and chocolate milk, sitting there like full blown, like ugly cry, like snot coming out of my nose and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just not going to eat carbs anymore. That was like my big brain moment, right? Like, I'm just not going to eat carbs. Like that will solve all my problems. It was the carbs' fault, right? It wasn't the fact that I had 4 freaking Pop-Tarts. It was just because they have carbs. If they didn't have carbs, I would have been fine. Like that's so.
It's
like,
funny how our minds really do work like that. It's really funny. Yeah. And so that's what led you to start. Did you even consider what you would be doing forever, or were you just in that moment thinking about like, I'm just cutting carbs kind of like infantly and without like just a...
Yeah, there was absolutely no game plan, like no game plan. I think I got on Instagram and was like looking at I started looking up other people who were doing this. And I'd seen a bunch of people who were very successful. And it was still, I feel like it was just kind of started to become like, I don't like to use the word trendy, but it is, I mean, that is what it is. It was just starting to become trendy to do keto. And so there was not
marketable.
A lot of it. Yeah. Bingo. Bingo, big time. So I didn't know really what it was. And I was just like, oh, well, if I just eat meat and nuts and cheese, I'll be doing great. And as it turns out, like that's really not a long-term way to live your life.
My thinking at first was just Halle Berry is amazing and she looks amazing. And I really want like that good. She had like in the video that I watched, she like had this glow. And she was attributing her glow to her diet. And I'm like, I want that glow. I too want that. Exactly. And yeah, that did not work out so much.
No,
that
same.
did not work out. Halle Berry does the ketogenic diet for the benefits, I'm sure, but also because she has type 1 diabetes. There are people that do the carnivore diet because they have medical reasons. When they eat other things, it causes them pain. It sends them into depression. They have autoimmune disorders. Like there is nothing wrong. And if you have none of those things, but you do keto and it is sustainable for you, there is nothing wrong with doing that. I just wanted to throw that out there. Like,
yeah, no, and I agree. I'll never poo-poo on somebody's diet choices. Yeah. Like if that's what you want to do, rock on if it works for you. But for me, it was not a sustainable choice. So you just make choices that you want to do long term, depends on what your goals are.
What point did you do keto?
It was way before, like back in 2017.
That's part of what led you to decide to do the weight loss surgery. Can you talk to us a little bit about your history with the scale or your weight loss history or weight struggles? I don't know how to word it.
No, I know exactly what you mean. So definitely struggled with my weight. Ever since I was a little kid, it's been up and down, up and down. Actually, I remember getting in my Easter basket one year. Instead of candy, I got Dance Workout with Barbie. And I was like so traumatized by that. It was a VHS tape, Dance Workout with Barbie. And I know my mom's heart was in the right place. But I was like, where's my chocolate rabbit? Why didn't I get one? And my sister, who is very skinny, did, so ever since I was probably 7 or 8 years old at that time. I've had kind of issues with my weight going up and down. I had my 7th grade glow up, where I lost a bunch of weight over the summer and went back to school and, was much slimmer at the time. And then in my late teens, I went up and down just depending on who I was dating or when I was dating.
Were you intentionally trying to have a glow up, or was it just a byproduct of being active as a kid?
That was in 7th grade. And no, it was intentional. I totally went on some, like, I'm only going to eat, peanuts. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was very little food that I was eating at the time. And I can't remember if I worked out or not. I probably went just walking around my neighborhood, but it was very intentional. Like I went on some kind of crash diet over the summer before 7th grade started.
And when you went back to school, was there comments? Did you feel different about yourself? Like what was
Absolutely. The year before 6th grade, it was a hot mess because I was overweight. I got picked on and bullied a lot. And then 7th grade, when I had my little glow up, all the people who had bullied me now all of a sudden wanted to be my friends. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to be in my group when I did group projects. It was I remember it very distinctly. There was a humongous shift in how I was treated by my classmates, and the bullying almost completely came to a stop at that time. Because I looked cute. I made sure that I bought cuter clothes. I put a lot of effort into not going into 7th grade the way that I did going into 6th.
So I didn't really ever experience bullying growing up. I was very sensitive to bullying. Meaning like when other kids were bullied around me, like it bothered me. And then I would sometimes get into like, mostly it was my brother, like, and he never got bullied hard, but he was like short and younger than me. And so kids like my age, I remember a few times would like be saying things to him. And I remember getting like heated. Like one time I was like in 2nd grade and he was in, I guess, kindergarten. And this 4th grader was like giving him a hard time. And I like pushed her down a hill.
Whoa.
I mean, I was little, but I was like, you're not going to mess with my brother. Like,
I'm picturing this like tough, like motorcycle gang, little April, who's like, don't mess with my brother.
What's funny is that I was probably dirty because I love to be outside. And I was probably wearing a pink dress with like a bow in my hair. Like, and I was probably like, you're not messing with my brother.
I love this visual.
So I never really experienced bullying. And I feel like now I have. It's weird to be a grown person and the way that it affects me to have like these content creators bullying and harassing me. It's made me think a lot about what it would be like to be a child and be bullied. How did that affect you when you were a child?
I still remember a lot. Like I can tell you phrases that were said to me. I remember I specifically, so in 5th grade, I remember somebody saying, she's fatter than my pregnant hamster. Like, what a stupid insult, first of all, right? But like, it stuck with me. I remember it from 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, there were just some boys. So that's when all the elementary schools mix into one big melting pot of teenage, preteen, whatever mess. Yeah. And the boys were just so mean to me. I mean, so mean. Would call me fat pig, stupid whale, just anything. Shamu was popular from like SeaWorld back then. That was a name I heard a lot. And then some other things, like I very distinctly remember somebody had written, so, I don't know if they still do this in classes or not. I got to ask my kids, but you used to pass like if you were working on a paper, everybody would pass it forward. Well, to be mean to me, they would put like gross things on the person's paper behind me so that when I reached to grab it, I would touch something disgusting. Sometimes it was spit. Sometimes it was snot. Like they were just really nasty. Or they would write little things on the top of the paper that would be like, my maiden name starts with a K. They would say Sara K is greasy, or Sara K wets the bed. Like they would write these things on the top, and it was just all just super, super cruel. And at that time, like I'm kind of outgoing now. I was not an outgoing child. I was shy. I kept to myself, and I never really understood why people were so cruel to me. And really, the only reason that I can keep coming back to was that they saw my weight problem and decided that was a reason for me to be lesser than them, or to make themselves feel good and pick on somebody who they deemed less worthy than themselves.
I wonder too, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you as a child. Like I know you're a grown person, you're probably way past it, but just hearing you tell your experience made me.
Well, it's real funny when you start getting, and I'm not super popular on YouTube or Instagram or anything, but everybody in my circle knows that I am active on social media and I have a following. People come out of the woodworks and they're like, I'm so sorry. I had one girl message me on Instagram and she said, I'm so sorry I was so shitty to you when we were kids. And I'm like, okay, I hope that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
So
I think
kind of crazy.
It's interesting. Well, and kids, I think, act out against other kids for so many different reasons.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it starts with one child doing it. And often the ringleaders of it have bad homes. And so I think that it's good. Like if you've bullied kids, I know pretty much every mean thing that I've ever said to someone, I remember. And I guess there's not a ton, but like, I remember feeling bad that I wasn't trying to push that girl down the hill, but there was like a hill there. She had done so. I think she might've pushed my brother. Like she had done something, she was teasing him, and then she had done something to him and I did not appreciate it. And so, but I still remember and I feel bad. Like I don't, all of that with the bullying. I ask because you were bullied as a child and that is so hard. And I feel bullied as an adult and that is hard. I cannot imagine what children now go through when they are bullied like that as like super young kids. And then they go home and the online stuff that I experience bleeds into it's everywhere. And I just can't imagine what that's like. And I don't really have a good purpose or reason for bringing this up.
Well, I think, you know what? It's a teachable moment for anybody listening. Like if you have kids, especially, well, all ages really, but I think at like the preteen age, they're really super sensitive. My kids are teenagers. And I think just teaching them how to, first of all, that if somebody's doing that to them, if somebody's saying these things, whether it's in person or online, it is 100% okay to pipe up about it and say something. I never did. I never said anything to anybody because I was just like, well, this is my life and this is what I have to deal with. And I kept it to myself, but I have made sure as heck to teach my children that you come to me or you come to dad and you tell one of us, do not think that you have to suffer through that alone, because you do not. And I think it's really important for all of us as adults, even, right? Like with the bullying you've experienced, is to speak about it. Right. And I wish people would understand how, like, the people who do it would really understand how it makes people feel, and try to understand within themselves, why do they enjoy making somebody feel like that? That would be, if it was me doing it, like, that would be the question I would want to ask myself is, why do I like making somebody else feel this way? Because right now, me, the person I am today, I can't comprehend it one bit. I don't think it's fair, and it's very unkind. And there's just so much of that in the world that, for people who are sharing something really as mundane as trying to lose weight. I mean, we're not out here trying to get famous for it. We're just sharing our story. And to take time out of your day to just be cruel to somebody for that fact, it's kind of like, for obese people, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. Because if you just stay obese, or you're super, into the body positivity community, and you're like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right in my body the way I am right now. And I don't care if I lose weight or not. Well, people will pick on you for that. And then if you're like, well, I'm really trying hard to lose weight, this is what I'm doing. Well, people can pick on you for that too. And it's like, where do we draw the line? What are we supposed to do?
There are people out there who are like, how dare you share? Like, how dare you? Like, who do you think you are? And I'm like, I actually think I'm nobody, but I think each of us, everyone has a story, and our stories are worth sharing. And by sharing them, it calls light to different situations. For me, it's mostly self-shaming and things that I do and think about myself, and overcoming that. And then some people, it's that they've been bullied, but shining a light on it, even bullying in the classroom. Like, if you have kids, encouraging your kids. I love, so Eunice, who owns iFit, it's a gym I work out. I remember not too long ago, I went in to work out. This is the beginning of summer. And she was like, April, I have an idea. And we have not worked out this idea. So it is still just an idea. But she's like, I know you've been experiencing bullying and stuff. And she's like, I want to teach my sons how much harder it is being heavy. And he's like, she's like, I think I want to like try and organize some kind of activity. I had been doing, like, I had walked a mile earlier carrying the weight I had lost. And she's like, maybe carrying weight and like do an event. And I'm like, that's such a good idea. But she's involved in teaching her kids to empathize, to have empathy.
Wow.
And for little boys, especially, and, some little girls, but developmentally, those types of things come at different stages, different ages. It's just the way we're built. Love that she wanted to teach her kids, in that way, and just bringing awareness to it. Going back to what I've experienced as an adult and what you experienced as a child, I am so concerned for so many children who are living in like it's hell. It's hell to have someone make up lies or twist everything that you do, or look to pick you apart for their benefit. And kids will do that for social gain. Just like other YouTubers do it to bring views and sell their products. Like, they're not doing it. It's probably not personal. They probably can't stand me. They probably don't watch much of my content except to look and be like, aha, I got you. You looked really fat and awful in that picture. Yeah. So, and then they put it up, they put a catchy thumbnail, and then people watching are like, I wonder what this girl did to deserve that. She must be really terrible. And then they engage with the content, and that's rewarded, and so they win. And it's the same for the kids in school. You'll have like a group of, let's say, girls, and they see another girl, maybe one of them's like feeling insecure, has a bad, like, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, but they're like, I'm going to put you down in a funny way. It's going to make everybody laugh, and it's going to get the attention off of me. and everybody's going to see how funny I am and I'm going to make friends. They might not think it all through, but that's kind of how it works. And I think just taking time to educate your children, one, not to do that. Two, teach your children that it isn't something to be shamed. Like when other children make fun of you or other grown people, like do things like this to you, it's not a shameful thing. Like that's what I feel when people take my picture and put lies or manipulations or their assumptions. Like I want to hide. Like I'm like, that's so embarrassing. And kids are like that, but to a probably even higher degree.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, honestly, for kids especially, but it's still hurtful no matter what, and I just don't. I can't, I guess maybe I'm just too nice of a person. Like I can't wrap my head around why to do that. Like, there's so many other ways you can get personal gain than tearing somebody else down. It's really hard for me. At the end of the day, there are more good, supportive, genuine, caring people. I think if YouTube has taught me anything, is that building a community is more rewarding than however many views a video gets. When you see people connecting and they're like, oh, I saw you in Sarah's video, or, oh, so-and-so on this channel was talking about you, so I came over here and I just love you, that sort of thing. Or the comments where it's like, I felt this way too when this happened to me, and it made me feel so much better that you shared that you went through it. That outweighs any of that kind of negativity for me. And that now, right? Like I always was about sharing my story, and I still am sharing my story, but now it's fostering community and getting people who will support each other, like to continue supporting each other outside of just like what goes on my YouTube channel or my Instagram. And that has been way more rewarding than any of it. And it does help, I think, at the end of the day. And you have a pretty amazing following too. I've been on your premieres and stuff, and everybody's cheering each other on and supporting each other. And I think, at the end of the day, we just have to give more attention to that than the negative. And I think that'll help keep us,
Yeah. For whatever reason, I think human nature allows that small percentage to have such power. And you're absolutely right that training ourselves to focus on the positive is just so important.
It's easy to do. It's really hard. My energy into the people that support me than those who are just going to pick on me or say mean things. And that's what I choose to do. And I think it helps me keep my focus.
I love that. And it's worth it. Like helping one person makes it worth it. And for me, having documented my story like I have, going back and looking at past videos, it helps me so much to see progress, both like just mental progress, like how I approach myself, and then also physical, like mobility things, like little things that I never really even thought to notice. It's pretty powerful. And I love that a lot. So
my favorite thing from your channel is when you started doing your Mile for Time videos. And just, if you watch one of your older ones and just watch how you walk, just watching how you walk today and how you carry yourself, you can see the confidence. Your face is like, you're just like, yeah, I'm going to get this. And that's been like, those are my absolute favorites. Like when I see you upload one of those, I'm like, yes, I get so excited because I love being able to just remember where you came from and seeing how far you've come. That's like one of the most amazing things to me. And bravo. I get to say it to you in person, but like I'm always cheering for you. You know that, but
thanks, Sarah.
It's like my absolute favorite is when you see, and that's so many, that's not just your channel. There's a lot of channels of people who are making progress every week, every month. And like, that's one of the best things. Like, I know there's many people who are like, well, weight loss channels shouldn't be a thing, but why? Like, why shouldn't they? I think they should be a thing. I think we should be cheering each other on. And one of the biggest things psychologically to help with weight loss is having a support system and a network. And not all of us have that in person. So where do we find it? We find it online. We find it in places like YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. And that becomes our support system. And it is different when you have, I don't care how many subscribers you have. If you have 10, 20, 100, 100,000, having people that have your back every single week, or maybe not even every single, but every video you upload, there's like those same people who are always like, yeah, you did it. Don't worry about that. You'll just do better next week. Like, they're keeping you in the game. And I just am like, how could that be a bad thing? I think that's a great thing.
There's so much power in community, both where you live, online, power and positivity when people come together and share. And it does things like shine out feelings of shame, because a lot of things that we feel shame for, it's because we feel isolated and alone, like we're the only ones.
Yes.
And it's very rare, I think, in life that we will experience anything and it be completely unique. Now, all of the things together that we experience will make up our stories, and that is unique. But each individual thing, it's not, it happens to so many people. And I think that's one of the things, like, people may argue against weight loss channels, and there's a valid thoughts there, but technology is powerful. It can be good and it can be not good. And
True.
Focusing, kind of like you were saying earlier, on the good aspects, being able to reach out and connect with so many people who are trying to do the same thing that you are is incredible. And I love that you are so, like, I can feel your passion for building community and encouraging connections.
Yes.
And I love that so much. Going back to your story. So you're talking about how you got the Barbie workout video in the podcast episode that we started. So this one, but we started it. So it didn't work. The audio didn't, the video, but you had mentioned that you and your mom are a lot alike.
Yes.
And so that was likely coming from such a good place, and her wanting to protect you from things she may have experienced.
100%.
And I wanted to go back to that. You shared some things that your mom has done as far as surgery and things go when you were sharing your why. So why you ever considered
why or how I got to the decision of making surgery. There were like a lot of factors that went in. One was recommendation of medical professionals over the last decade. It wasn't like I certainly did not wake up and was like, I'm going to have weight loss surgery and just solve all my problems. Like, it was not like that at all. There was a lot of research and stuff that went into it. And I also had the more personal experience that my mom had gastric bypass about 22 years ago. It's around that time. It was around the time I graduated high school. So, which is 21 years ago. Going back to our age discussion, right? But anyway, so me and my mother I'm probably like this close to being her clone. Like, we look very much alike. Our voices sound very similar. We have the same handwriting. It's like very weird. There's just a lot of things that I'm like, I didn't know this was hereditary, but maybe it is. And one of those hereditary things is obesity. My whole mom's side of the family, obesity has always been a struggle. And so my mom was in very severe shape back in, the late 2000s. I don't know what her weight was at the time. I do remember, I remember this one picture I have of her where I was giving her a hug and my arms don't go all the way around her. And I remember her referencing that picture and saying how much it hurt her that, I couldn't get my arms all the way around her for a hug. And so she had that gastric bypass surgery. And so in a way, I almost felt like I was like genetically predetermined to need some kind of a tool to help me with weight loss. I don't think that gastric bypass was the answer for me, which is why I chose the vertical sleeve. They're both still very permanent. So there's not like a huge difference there. It's really just in the amount of food that you can eat where there's some slight variation. But, it's like, I know you follow Greg Doucette, and he always says, you chose the wrong parents. Like, you should have picked different parents. And I'm just like, man, why did I think of that? So it was like I saw myself going down the same path as my mom and growing up. And you're probably right. Going back to this dance workout with Barbie video, growing up, I seen her do Nutrisystem, Weight Watchers, all the late 90s diets that you could think of. I seen my mom do. I seen her, and she would lose weight. She would lose weight and then gain it all back and then some, and just going through the cycle. And it was kind of like, there's this old, like saying, like, it's like mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all, is like this expression that I've heard. And I would like look at myself and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm my mother. I am my mother. Like, I just kind of like freaking out. And my mom's a great person and she's a great mom. So like, it's not a bad thing, but some of the more negative physical things like the obesity, the heart problems, the pre-diabetes, the high blood pressure, I saw myself going down that path. And for my mom, what she went through, she had a leaky, I don't remember which one. I want to say a leaky aorta valve before she had her surgery. So like she just had so much pressure from her excess weight that it was causing her valves to have problems. And that's scary. Like that's super scary. And I saw myself going down that same path. I'm like, I'm doing the exact same things my mother did. And so you're 100% right. When she was doing that, giving me a kid's exercise video instead of a chocolate rabbit, there was goodness in that. It wasn't to be cruel or to traumatize me. It was to protect me from, going down the same path as she did, or having to worry. And sometimes I see a lot of that with my son, even sometimes too, is now I'm trying to protect him. He's very similar to me. So it's kind of just interesting how that works. So that was a huge factor in my decision to have the VSG and hopefully avoid a lot of those issues that she ended up encountering before she had her gastric bypass.
You went forward. You found out you couldn't get the surgery. Insurance was going to pay for it. It's going to be like 25 grand, which is crazy. It's so expensive. And it was such a I feel like it's heartbreaking because your mom had such a success with it. And I mean, I know there are probably far more success stories than not, but I definitely heard some not great stories. I have a great aunt who had a very, very hard life after having that. So when I say that, there are so many different types of the surgery. I don't know.
There really are.
You went through a bout of depression and you gained more weight. What was your highest weight that you got to?
I think the highest weight that I was at was 292 pounds.
And then you proceeded to go forward, losing weight, and you were sharing that on YouTube through the pandemic. And your fear was absolutely right. So I shared this with you earlier. When I got the virus, ended up in the hospital with it, the doctor literally said, if you had not lost the weight you've lost, you probably wouldn't have made it. That inspired you to continue forward. And so you started the fear of the worst case, which was common. That worst case was common for so many. And you've lost about 30 pounds in that time. What did that time look like for you? And how did you arrive at approaching weight loss surgery again?
Yeah. So I'll refer to the period before surgery since I just had it. I'll refer to it as the last 2 years because that's really how long I've been at it. And when you break it down, like 30 pounds in 2 years, that's still something to celebrate. And I'm still really proud of that. But at the same time, if you watch my videos, I was working my butt off. And I think in 2021, this is what my doctor's office told me, that in 2021, I lost 12 pounds. And I just kept thinking to myself, I worked so much harder than a 12-pound weight loss, like so much harder. What went wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? And basically what I was doing, or what I've been doing, is calorie counting. Something important to me is not to restrict. That's something early on. So I went to therapy for about 18 months to help with binge eating disorder treatment. And one of the things I really learned was that restriction is not for me. I cannot tell myself, like, no, you cannot have that, because then that is all I am going to think about, which is nuts, but it is. I mean, that's just what it is. And the more I restrict, and this is very true, the more I restrict, the more likely I am to have a binge. And so that was the big thing for me, was like, I'm not eliminating any food groups. Like, carbs are my friend. They're okay. You know, I'm going to let them into the house. Like, but there has to be moderation. And the thing with binge eating disorder is, even if you go to therapy and you do treatment, it never goes away, because you can't, it's not like smoking. Like, if you smoke, you quit smoking and you don't ever have to go buy a pack of cigarettes ever again. But you can't just say, like, I'm going to quit binge eating and just never go buy food again. That's not how it works. So you have to still eat, but you also have to learn to make like those better choices. And what is it? I always say it wrong, but it's like the high volume, low calorie foods.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right?
Greg Doucette. I mean, Greg Doucette's not the only person, and he wasn't the first, but
there are so many amazing content creators out there who take this lifestyle approach. And like, there's some recipes out there where you're like, I can't believe this is like, actually this has nutritional value. Like, this is not going to clog my arteries or anything, you know, it's kind of crazy. But that was really an approach I took, was putting protein and vegetables first. And so long as I got in what I was within my calorie budget, I got that in, then I'm allowed to have, a serving size of, baked hot Cheetos instead of the full fat ones or whatever. And allowing myself those little snacks. But I still struggled over the last 2 years with the binges. And that was something I was always very open about. And it would 90% of the time, I would have a weight gain for the week if I had binged that week. And that's just how bad my binges are. So the whole thing with binge eating is like, it's a cycle of shame and guilt, right? Is, you're not supposed to binge eat, but you do it. And then you feel like garbage afterwards. And then you restrict because you're like, you tend to punish yourself for it, which is, you do not have to do. Like, it's just something hard to, once you've been in the cycle of it for so long, it's something really hard to overcome. And it just takes so much mental work. It's astounding. I was going somewhere with this and I totally lost my train of thought, but, so to put that in a video, right, and tell people like, oh, I binge ate 3 times this week, and so now I gained 4 pounds that I had lost last week. Like, it's very eye-opening to do that, to share it with hundreds of strangers that you don't know necessarily in person. And there was this little voice inside of me. The YouTube voice is maybe what I'll call it. The little YouTube voice in the back of my head going, do you want to have to put this on video this week? Are you sure you want to do this? Like, because you're going to have to be honest about it with your followers. And that definitely helped me a lot in a lot of situations where I was like, I don't want to have to tell people I did this. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And then I don't have to tell anybody. So sharing my journey that way has been good. I have a couple of subscribers and I love them. I love them all, but I have some who are like very like tough love, like they don't hold back. They're real honest with me. They're like, well, why'd you make this decision? Did you really think about that? And what if you would have tried this? Like, would it have turned out better? And I'm like, oh, here you go, making me think about things like, and so having that has been sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse, but I love all of it just the same. And I'm so appreciative that people actually watch me ramble on for 10 to 15 minutes of video and provide their feedback or give advice when I ask for it. It's so YouTubing has probably been the one thing that's kept me from regaining weight, because that's one thing I can say. I had a couple periods where I gained a little bit of weight back, but I never went back to the weight that I started YouTubing at, which was about 275 when I started in, I want to say April of 2020, when I started the channel up again, after I had started trying to lose weight during the COVID thing. So I never got back to that weight. I did, for the most part, keep it off. I think the highest I went back up was like 260-ish, but never back to that 274, which is a huge accomplishment because almost every weight loss attempt that I had made prior, I gained the weight back and then some.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge. I would call that 2 years, of course, a success. Like that is to be at a net loss. It's like, I feel like I get some criticism because I celebrate my wins, but you have to celebrate your wins. You have to focus on the positive, and especially when you're going slow, and it's easier to go fast, not for everyone necessarily, but I feel like for me, it's easy to really restrict and focus and lose, at least initially, really fast. And then something always happens. And like you said, the rebound is always greater. Like when that pendulum swings, it swings back further. And I do not have binge eating disorder. So I get criticism that I'm not sharing all of my binges. And it's because I don't binge. Now, I have what I would call binged before. This year, I would call when I ate a whole watermelon at one time, and I wasn't the shit. It's more self-harm, but I mean, I go to counseling, and so I've had ADD my whole life. I was diagnosed as a kid, and then I was re-diagnosed. I didn't know I was diagnosed as a child, which explains a lot about weird things that I used to do. That my parents will tell these stories, and they think it's cute, especially my dad. He'll be like, yeah, we tell you to clean your room, and you would be you'd spend 2 hours and you'd be in there just working away at organizing your Barbies. And I'd be stop playing with your Barbies. And you'd be like, I'm not this apps. And I have memories of they absolutely need to be in their right outfit and they need to be on the shelf.
Is that funny?
Even though everything's so messy, there's 1,000 things to do. And I'm hyper fixated on this really weird, but, so I'm saying that to say, I went through, the psychological testing thing. So they screened for basically everything. And I do not meet the criteria for binge eating disorder. We all have different struggles, and it is so relatable and encouraging for us to share our stories and journeys as they are. There might not be as many people that do the things that I do. And there may be more overweight people who have binge eating disorder, or there might not be. So, I mean, I don't know, but I love how passionate you are about sharing that.
As I mentioned, shame is a huge factor in BED. I have seen very few videos where somebody actually records themselves having a binge, because just the nature of the disease is you would not do that. It's a very secretive, it's a for me thing. And so I don't ever want to doubt anybody, and I don't. Everybody's experience is different, but somebody who maybe records themselves actually binge eating, I would question where they're at in their journey, because that would qualify as sharing it, which is so uncommon, because a lot of people don't even realize that they are binge eating because they do it in secret. They'll go through a drive-through and order a bunch of fast food, eat it in the car, throw out the garbage and go home and just go about their day. Somebody said to you, well, you don't share your binges. Well, even if you did have binge eating disorder, it's highly unlikely that you would, or that you would even track it.
Oh no, it wouldn't. I mean, and I wish I could share some of the low moments that I have. Like, I definitely have shared emotional moments. Those emotions come out while I'm already filming. When I ate that watermelon, if I had a thought, I should go get my camera so that I can film myself eat this. Like, that would have pulled, like, it's like when I had the oatmeal situation, and you probably don't know this, but like my first time, it's more like I get angry. This is why I say it's more like of a cell. I have binged, and it doesn't qualify as binge eating disorder. And when I do it, it usually comes after the shame and anger at myself about something else. And it's almost just self-harm. When I went to eat all that oatmeal, when it blew up in the microwave, and I'm like, it pulled me out, because I mean, how ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything else in the house, and I was about to eat like a crap ton of oatmeal, like to punish myself, not to enjoy it. Like, I was like, I hate you. You're going to be fat forever. Like, just this spiral that sometimes I have. Those aren't moments that will make it onto a video. A video requires thought outside of the moment, and those moments are powerful. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you say about binging for you and for most. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's just definitely, and I'm not saying like that there's, everybody experiences their things differently. But for me, same as you, like if I had to like, oh, I'm going to binge eat, let me get my camera out. No, I wouldn't do the binge. So maybe it's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good strategy, but that's just not how, like in my personal experience, that's not how it ever happens, where it's like, there's even that much thought that goes into it. It's almost like being in a trance, and there doesn't even have to be it doesn't have to be junk food even. Like, I think a lot of people picture like Doritos and Oreos and stuff like that. Doesn't have to be that. It could be whole wheat bread. It's whatever's there to eat, and you go through half a loaf of whole wheat bread in a sitting and binge on that. It's so hard to explain. And there's just no way, like me personally, I'm not saying everybody, just to be clear, but like, I just can't imagine taking my phone out and being like, I'm going to record myself. I would be way too in the moment. And that's one of the strategies that they taught us too, was that if you feel a binge coming on, just write yourself a little note what you're eating, because it's to pull you out of that moment. So you have the self-realization that, oh my God, I just ate 6 pieces of whole wheat bread. Why did I do that? Like writing, the activity of writing it is to pull you out, but you have to be able to, it takes a lot of strength to do it. It's really, really hard.
It's so interesting. Well, a couple of things. One, I can see how some people may film binging. And I think, to me, when I think about it, I think it would look something like they are so used to being alone, and they don't necessarily, and maybe they do have social interaction, but maybe it's limited in some way. Like, I don't know what that limitation means. And talking to the camera is like being alone. But that being said, I can't imagine. I feel like in my mind, if I was like, so when I ate that watermelon, if I would have thought I'm going to film this, it would have pulled me out. If I was driving my car and I was like, tonight after work, I'm going to binge. I'm going to go to the store and buy whatever I want, and I am going to binge. I don't feel like that would qualify as, and I have no right to say what qualifies as a binge for anyone. So, but in my opinion, that wouldn't be a binge. That's a bad choice. Like, now maybe you buy the food and you take it home, and you're like, I'm not going to eat it the whole way home. You're like, I'm not going to eat it. You know what? I'm better than this food. And you're like, when I get home, I'm going to put this in the pantry up tall for the kids. The kids are going to be able to eat all of these, whatever I bought. And then you get home, you put it up, and an hour later, you're like knee deep in packaging. That to me is more of what a binge is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And when I ate that watermelon, my sister was like, because I told her about it, and she has binge eating disorder. She's been diagnosed with it. She's been working through treatment for it. And she recently just did a video on it, actually, that had so many things in that video I had no idea. And
Wow.
but yeah, so I was telling her, and I get why she responded to me when I ate that watermelon the way that she did after watching that video. Cause I told her, I'm like, I ate a whole watermelon. And she's like, that is not binging. And I'm like, it was, because about a fourth of the way in, my stomach started to hurt. And I continued to force it down. And with every bite, I was just saying the nastiest, cruelest things to myself. That is the first time that had happened in over 2 years. Cause I don't like, even before I started sharing, I didn't binge all of the time. I would eat terribly, but it wasn't.
Yeah, there's definitely differences between like overeating, like genuine overeating, like where you're just like, keep going back for seconds. I've done that too, but that to me doesn't feel the same as like what a binge associated with my binge eating disorder does. Like it's two very different. Binges are I'm scared to say this, but they're almost unintentional. They're not, because you still have to decide to get up and go to the pantry or whatever. But it feels like you go on autopilot. Like it's like something takes over and it's just like, well, I'm just going to eat. Versus like me saying, oh, I want to get more of the, whatever, more of that rice that my mom cooked. I want to get more of that. Like that's different than like wanting to eat versus like the binge. I don't know. It's really hard to explain and I'm not doing a good job and I'm sorry.
I think it's hard to explain. And then it's also kind of like our weight loss journeys. Like everyone needs different things.
Yes.
And if you feel that you have binge eating disorder or that you might, or you're unsure, I 100% would not listen to two random gals chatting on a video for confirmation. Either way, I would make an appointment with your primary care doctor. I would go seek out counseling and just see. And then if you feel like you have it, you really, really have it, and you haven't been to counseling, and maybe you can't, maybe you don't, your insurance doesn't cover it, or maybe you don't have insurance, looking at community resources could be very helpful for you. Just trying your hardest to be kind to yourself. If you find yourself making bad choices or binging or both, like working through that by being kind to yourself and continuing forward. I think it's really interesting taking that concept and applying it back. For 2 years, you were trying so hard to lose weight. You lost 30 pounds and you had multiple binging episodes, but you were part of a really good community on YouTube that you built, and you continued forward. And then doing that, when did the opportunity for surgery, like how did you come back to that where you were going to get surgery?
Yeah, I had another one of those doctor's appointments where they told me all the wonderful things that I was headed towards if I didn't lose weight. They know that I was trying, and I have a log of everything that I do and a YouTube channel to show what I do. Right. So like I have all this history of me trying and I'm not getting anywhere. And again, the recommendation was, well, have you considered bariatric surgery? I say, yes. Are you going to give me money? Because I don't have it right now. And he said, ha, 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 no. And I was like, okay. So there's actually another, the bariatric surgery community on, again, both YouTube and Instagram is incredible. Instagram, there is just a huge number of people who are sharing their journey with vertical sleeve. And one gal that I follow, and I followed for a very long time, even before she had her surgery, her name's Less Than Kate. She posted a reel or something. And I just, in my head, I was like, I'm going to message her and talk to her and see if she has heard any. She's been in this community a while. I'm going to see if she knows any like workaround. So I left a comment on her reel and said, hey, just curious if your insurance covered it, or if it didn't, what did you do? If anybody reading these comments has had some kind of experience, could you please send me a DM? I just want to talk to you, because I was feeling like, there's a reason this keeps getting recommended to me. I know what my mom's been through. I just need to see, let me find out if there's a lesser expensive way to do this. And so, of course, a couple people reached out and they're like, you can go to Mexico and it's $5,000 and it goes great. And I was like, I have nothing against going on, what is it called? Medical tourism. But I just was too paranoid about it. I don't know why. It was like a gut feeling that told me don't go to Mexico.
I watched a video and you said something I think that's so important. I don't remember exactly what it was, like exactly how you phrased it or the full concept of the idea, but it was literally something that had never crossed my mind. And that was that you would not be covered if you went to Mexico and then came back and had any complications ever. You would not be covered. Yeah. And I was like, because that applies to everything, like any type of surgery. And like, that's crazy and so important to know before you make a choice to go outside of the country, because surgery, it's always risky.
Yes. Yeah. There's absolutely always a risk, whether you have it at the hospital down the road or you have it in Mexico or Europe or wherever. There's always some risk associated.
There's some risk. And so, it's not always immediate. So you get
right.
And I can't wait to follow along with yours. This is you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to share it because I don't know what I was expecting. And I don't want to say that it hasn't been what I expected. I think I didn't have any expectations. I think I went in like a blank slate kind of. And so far, everything has exceeded that. Like, it's been better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a much rougher recovery. I would say the hardest thing that I've done so far is the liquid diet, which you have to do to heal your stomach. Like, you have all these staples in your stomach now. So they got to heal. So you can only eat liquids for 2 weeks. And I just finished that last Friday. So I was like, that was such a moment, like when I was able to chew something again. So that's been the hardest thing that I've had to deal with so far, which I'm really fortunate. But the fun, going back to what you said about, like, there are horror stories out there of surgeries gone wrong. And that can go from, it doesn't even just have to be like a bariatric surgery. It could be a hip replacement, a knee replacement. Things can go wrong no matter what. Where I ended up going was to, I think it's called an ambulatory surgical center in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they work with people with their out-of-network benefits. So, you can explore that on your own. And I think there's several different places across the country that might do that. But I chose this one based on reviews. I talked to a couple of people on Instagram who had gone through their program. And kind of the nice thing with doing it that way was I didn't have to go through any of the hoops that comes with insurance covering it. Insurance wants you to go through like a year of medically supervised diet. So there can be it can be a long wait. I did not have to do that. I went from pre-op to surgery in 5 days. So
holy crap, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Really honestly, like if I would have known something like that existed, I probably would have tried. The reason I haven't done weight loss surgery is because I lost so much weight and I gained it back. And the way I gained it back, I was depressed and I went through a few other things all at the same time. It's the perfect storm. And then it just spiraled really quickly. So I'm like, that could still happen to me in that way, especially since I'm prone to, like I said, I don't have binge eating disorder, but I would call it self-harmed myself with Oreos at that point. Like I ate so many Oreos, and with every bite, it was like, I hate you. Like, you deserve this. Not you deserve the Oreo and like a yum. I don't even like Oreos. It was like just punishment. So for those reasons, I don't know if bariatric surgery is for me, because I think I would just tolerate the pain and gain all the weight back. Like,
it's a really personal decision. And that's what anybody who's talked to me, they're like, maybe I should have this. I'm like, really think it through. I've had a decade to think about it. It took me like 7 years. I have one single tattoo right here. It took me 7 years to decide what tattoo I was going to get. So like, just thinking, that's how I am as a person. Like, a real permanent decision takes me a long time. There were some other factors that went into it, but it was several years of doing research and talking to people who have had procedures, knowing what my mom went through with her procedure. I had a very long time to make this decision. It just took me a longer time to find a way to get it done. And I still spent a lot of money to get it done, but not that like $25,000 that was the self-pay at the hospital in my town. So huge decision, physically, mentally. There is a lot of mental work that I have had to put in just the last 3 weeks. And then financially also, if your insurance doesn't cover it, even if your insurance does cover it, it's still a pretty big chunk of change from my understanding. Even with insurance.
With insurance stuff. So back when we got married, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I paid like a co-insurance. I had like the copay that I would do. So I had to pay both. And I had like a surgery on my hand, and it was so expensive after insurance.
Yeah.
Eventually I dropped that insurance for his insurance. It covers so much. Now with my husband's insurance, I didn't have to pay anything. My point here is the average cost of a hospital stay having COVID after insurance was like 20 grand. The amount of destruction that virus is focusing on our fitness and specifically getting weight off is so important, which is why I don't know if it's in the video today or if I said it in a video already. I don't want to just lose weight for appearance, and appearance at this point has like, I'm pretty happy with myself. I think that's another reason why it's easy to not be super aggressive until I was like, holy crap, you're about to have another birthday and you still don't have a baby. And then I'm like, oh no, what do I do? But for health, like, I want to lose weight to live a long and healthy life. And I don't know how I got here from 20K in insurance, except for, working on our health.
Saying it's like an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I'm messing it up badly.
No, I think that's it. I think that's it. Cause there's also like
I'm acting like I don't have a phone here that I could look it up.
Yeah, there's also like a Southern saying, at least I think it's Southern, where it's like an ounce of pretension is worth a pound of endure. Which is like it's like a play off of that. But yeah, so you got the surgery. I cannot believe it was just 5 days. That's amazing and wonderful. And you are 3 weeks post-op now.
Correct.
And you recently made a video enjoying might not be the right word.
Chewing. I was enjoying chewing food. So the 2 weeks after surgery, you go on a full liquid diet. So it's just protein shakes, protein water, flavored water, and soup broth. And it was like completely miserable, but I survived. So the first thing, like one of the first recommendations when you graduate into the soft foods at 2 weeks post-op is eggs. I was like, I love eggs. And so I was like, I'm telling you, like 4 days before that I knew the liquid diet, I was like dying. Okay. I was like, I can't wait to eat this egg. It's going to be so good. Like, I can't wait. And so then I made my little video and I'm like, I'm making my scrambled egg with a little bit of cheese. And I got my egg and I'm sitting there and I took 3 bites of it. and I was full. And if you see that video, I made it into a YouTube short as well. It's in my vlog, but I also put that part into a YouTube short. You can see my face at the end where I'm like, I'm full on 3 bites of food. Like, what is going on here? Like, it was very, very weird. Putting it in most simple terms, it was weird. But I mean, it was the best tasting scrambled egg I ever had, I think, in my whole life. I was just so excited for solid food.
That is awesome and interesting. And I think it was in the first recording you said this, and I totally agreed with it, that I don't remember how you came into it, like how you started talking about it, but I've heard a lot of people refer to weight loss surgery as like, oh, cheating, or like it does it for you. And it's not. It is a tool. It's like a first step.
Yeah.
And in your case, it's not a first step. It's a step continue. It's the next step.
Yeah.
In which exactly steps after. What does that look like for you going forward? What does that look like?
So like you said, like I said, weight loss surgery is a tool. It does not do the work for you. You still have to exercise. You still have to eat according to the protocol, which for the first 6 months, they want you to be low carb, not eating, a bunch of junk food. You still have to stick to the rules. There's rules that come with it. The goal is to not be on a diet forever, but to have control over the amount of food that you're eating. So for me right now,
and I think prioritize protein, right? Like
absolutely. Yep. It's somebody on Instagram just did a great little reel about it and called it like picture like a parfait, like we call it the pouch because that's the size of your stomach now. It's just a little pouch. The pouch is like a little parfait, and the bottom and biggest layer of the parfait needs to be protein, because that's what you need to heal. That's what you need to get stronger. The next layer of the parfait should be high fiber veggies. So like your leafy greens, your green beans, your asparagus, broccoli, all those good things. And then the top of the parfait is your carbohydrates. And they're just there to look pretty. They don't really serve much of a purpose right now, but they make the top of the parfait look kind of nice. And I thought that was a fantastic analogy. And I really should give credit to whoever wrote that, but I don't know who it was now.
If you send me the reel, I will put the.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find it,
or the show notes. I wanted to ask when you said that, because you're like carbohydrates are just bonus right now, or just fluff essentially.
Mm-hmm.
When do you start exercising again? Like when can you? Can you already, or they recommend waiting a certain period of time? Like how does that look?
Yeah. So right now I can walking, and I'm doing a lot of walking. Actually, today is probably the least walking I've done in quite a while. But so walking until about 6 weeks, then I can start lifting and running again, which I enjoy running. I was already enjoying running. I feel like I'm going to have to build up to where I was again, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I can do that at 6 weeks. Now, I also had, when they did my VSG, they discovered a hiatal hernia. So I had that repaired as well.
What is that?
Oh man, it's so gross. Well, it sounds gross anyway. So what it is your diaphragm is here. And with a hiatal hernia, like the top of your stomach goes through the tiny little hole that is between your diaphragm and whatever else is up there. I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know the right words, but so that little piece of your stomach is stuck in there, and they basically got to scooch it back down so that they can make the staple. And then they stitch that little section so that it can't go back up.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I had no idea what it was. And they did an endoscopy on me to check for it, but didn't see it. But then they found it when they were in there. So it didn't show up in the pre-test, but it was there. And they were like, yeah, you actually had a sizable one. I'm like, great. I never had any symptoms of it. So I don't know. I mean, it's just big deal, but that did prolong my waiting time before I can do exercise because I don't want to pop a stitch.
No, or like cause another hernia. Like it might not be the same one, but
Yeah.
I think if you're, I don't know, I don't want to make stuff up that I probably heard in like a house TV show or something.
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, crazy. I don't make things up that maybe are probably not true from like a show I watched 10 years ago, Grey's Anatomy. Like, exactly true. That's really cool. And so you're on a pretty restrictive diet now and for the next 6 months, and then you get to start working out again, which is really fun. What are the outcomes? Like, what is the outcome of a procedure like this?
So my surgeon's goal weight for me is 140 pounds.
How tall are you?
5'4".
5'4".
That's small. I might not have been that small since 6th grade. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I was under 150 pounds for sure. I think maybe when I was like 18, I was maybe 155, 160. That's, I think, the lowest weight I can recall. So I don't know what that's going to be like. So my surgeon said I should be able to hit that goal in 6 to 9 months. My goal since I started my YouTube channel was always to be around 175, which would put me at 100 pounds lost since I started the YouTube channel. But that's another 30 pounds. So I don't know. I always call that the surgeon's goal because I don't know that that's my goal. I think I would be happy around 160, 170. But I guess, I'm going to kind of play it by ear and see how the weight loss goes and kind of take it from there. But there's some pretty hefty goals.
I have no business saying what I'm about to say. I'm not a medical professional. But I was reminded of something today. And when you were saying that about your surgeon's goal versus your goal, it reminded me of it. Once we hit, I think this thing I read today, I didn't know it was so steep. So once you hit 35, you start losing a percentage of muscle every year, just naturally. And the aging process between 40 and 50, you lose like 18% or something crazy. Like you lose a high percentage of muscle. And then it makes everything weaker, including your bones. And so I wonder if that's why that's his goal. Because if you
could be
get to the 170s, you'll probably look amazing, feel amazing, and be completely happy. But in 20 years, if you're at that weight and you take a stumble or a fall, especially when I think with weight loss surgery, protein deficiency is sometimes a thing.
Calcium is too.
Calcium too. Yeah. Yep. So I bet that's why it's so low for you, especially in comparison to what your goal was for yourself. Now, again, I do not say that to pressure you.
No, not at all.
Anything like that. But I wish it has been to lose 200 pounds, which puts me at 150. And I'm like, I've been thinking about this really for the past couple of weeks. I'm like, I've always thought like, I might not even get that low. Like I'm heavier now. I have more muscle. Like maybe I'll be happy at like 160, even though I'm so short. But then I'm like, what will that look like if I live this long, healthy life I want to, if I'm falling? And my grandma recently told me that she took a stumble, and she's a pretty tiny lady. But yeah, I'm just been thinking about that a lot.
It's definitely something to think about. The long term. I'll be on vitamins for the rest of my life. I have to take a calcium supplement. I have to take 1 a day. I have to take a vitamin B supplement. And there's the amount of protein that I need to get in today. I think my goal is between 60 and 70 grams. To eat that much food and get those kinds of numbers, no way. So I've been drinking it censored it. muscle milk and Premier Protein. I go between the two of them depending on what's on sale. So I have to have those.
Sharing this part of your journey, because I think that will be really helpful for people who maybe think that that's a shortcut, because I wouldn't look at that as a shortcut at all.
No, it's not.
A commitment to work
Honestly, I'm working much harder than I was even when I was calorie counting. Because now it's like, it's not a challenge to get 60 grams of protein. It's a requirement, it's
Requirement. And you ate 3 bites of one egg, and we're full.
Okay.
And one egg has how much protein? Probably
I think it's like 7 or 8 grams.
I was going to say like probably not even like 10, 12 grams, but I think you're right. I think it's less than that. So that's incredible. Well, I'm so excited for you. And
thank you. Me too.
I've really, really loved talking to you and getting to know you
Same.
like a face to face. It feels really good. It always feels good to talk to people from online, even just in the chats. So like whenever you pop on, fun because I have like these people, it's their handle. Some people, it's not even their name, but I'm like, oh, it's my friend.
I know. Well, that's what I'm like, I think maybe it was before Aaron was going to be on your podcast and he was telling me about it. I'm like, I love April so much. Like she's been my friend for the longest now. And I'm like, we're not like friends in real life. We don't hang out, but like you do. And I think that's just, again, one of the wonderful parts of YouTube, right? Is you do get to know the people that you follow. And I think a lot of people, there's some like negativity in the media. I think it's just a new way of connecting with people at the end of the day is how do I share my story? My kids don't care. I'm like, I lost 2 pounds. They're like, yeah, okay, mom. Like, I'm going to go play PlayStation now. Like, they don't care. And my husband too. My husband's not going to be like, of course he's excited for me and supports me. But if I'm sitting there eating a piece of cake, my husband's not going to be like, oh, you shouldn't have that piece of cake. He's not going to do that. But if I share that I had this piece of cake on my YouTube channel, one of my YouTube people is going to be like, girl, why'd you make that decision? Like next time, try this, do this instead, like it's just another way of connecting with more people and building that support network, building that community, and just being able to be in touch. And so I do consider a lot of the people who regularly interact with my videos and come to my premieres, I do consider them my friends in a way. It might not be like the traditional friend, but I still care about them. I still want when I see one of my friends lose a pound, I'm like, heck yeah. Like, I'm always over here cheering and excited.
Yeah, there's one subscriber I was talking to last night, and I was kind of like, I've talked to her for years now, so I know her, but then it gave me pause. One of the messages I sent her, I'm like, okay, she's a stranger, but I'm like, no, she's not a stranger. And then I got to thinking and I'm like, this is like pen pals.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Pen pals. And pen pals have always been a thing where people would write each other long personal letters and they would build an intimate friendship in that way. And I think this is the same.
I agree.
I think if you make videos in order to, I don't even remember how you're wording, but I think that that's wrong. Like, I don't want to be elevated above anyone ever. The idea or thought, even if people are just like, you did that so great, like, but in a way that's like, you did that better than me or better than that person, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I want people to, if they're watching my story, to be watching to glean whatever they can from me to use in whatever way they would like. But also with the understanding that when they comment or share their stories, they're doing the same for me. When people comment and share, it's uplifting, it's encouraging and motivating me. It's special and there's value in each of our stories. Just because I'm brave enough to and stupid enough to share all of my stuff online doesn't mean I am anything special, because I am not. I am. And I feel like this is kind of what you're saying too. Like, I think it's hard to share. And for so long, and I think in one of my very first videos, I said this, I'm like, I have never said my weight out loud. And at that point, it's funny because when I did keto, I had started doing YouTube and I made like cleaning videos and decor videos, and I'm visiting my family videos, and my husband's going to deploy videos. And those are all so special to me. on those, I also was like, I'm going to lose weight. And so I had like a series where I would talk about how much weight I lost over the month. And this only went on for like 6 months, but I watched one of those videos not too long ago. And I was like, so this month I lost 6 pounds. That was it. I didn't ever share how much I weighed at the beginning or how much I weighed after losing 6 pounds. That was all I could say. It was mortifying.
It's really hard to do.
I like doing the weigh-in Wednesdays because it forces me to say my weight. And that is hard for me to do. Like for whatever reason it is, like, it's like a judgment. And that is not really what it is. It's just my weight. It's neutral. It just is. It's a thing. It is.
Yeah.
But when I say it, there's so much attached to it. There's so much emotion.
I think no matter how much we try to talk ourselves out of it too, like your weight is a really personal thing. Like, even if you're like, it's just a number on the scale, it's just a data point. And I have shared that message on my channel many times. And I do believe that overall. That doesn't mean that that's what I do every time I get on the scale. I'm not like, here's my daily data point. Like, I'm like, this is my weight, right? And it's what I am carrying. And as much as I want to be like, it's just a number, like there still is, we pass judgment on ourselves because we're like, well, I could have done better this week, or I shouldn't have. And maybe if I didn't do this, I would have lost another half a pound or, whatever it is. I think we all do that. And I think it's just natural.
And as soon as I'm like, I'm 5'2", and let's say at the beginning of my journey, I was 352.8 pounds, that changes the way you're perceived.
There is a lot of stigma around weight. And then saying that number out loud, definitely, I mean, it almost pushes forward the stigma, right? Like, well, how could somebody do this to themselves? Like we all just sat here and we're like, I'm going to gain all the weight I can. Nobody freaking does that. Maybe some people do. I don't know, but there's like all different, different things out there, but there absolutely is. And a lot of times I've said, and this might be like a dangerous soundbite to put out in the world, but it's a lot of times like obese people, well, and I prefer to say people who suffer from obesity, it is a disease, are like the last okay group to make fun of.
When you're super morbidly obese, you move different, you breathe different, everything is hard, and you get the rep that you're so lazy, which no one in my real life, I don't think, has ever considered me lazy. But at that weight, everything, it takes so much energy to move. And that becomes laughable, which is really sad.
Yeah,
it's so shameful.
It's like simple things too. Like I remember going to Disney World in late 2018 with my family and walking up to the entrance, and there was a turnstile. And I like immediately I'm like, oh my God, like, is my butt going to get through this freaking turnstile? Am I going to have to like squeeze and sure enough, I did. And nobody said anything. But in my mind, I'm like, all these people just saw me have to squeeze my hips through this turnstile thing. Yeah. And then at the other park we went to, I realized that there was like a little gate thing that you could go through instead of pushing yourself through the turnstile. So I did that for the rest of the trip. But I was just like, it's like such a little thing, just going through a turnstile, big deal. But like when you're morbidly obese, it's terrifying because it's a moment where you can, God, what if I get stuck? Oh my God. You know how many times I've been scared, like when there's a crowded elevator and I'm going to get on I'm like, am I going to tip the scale of the elevator? And like, we're going to get stuck here. Like just things like that people don't realize can be so scary and hard to do,
Yeah. And anytime shame is involved, I feel like it makes us shrink away from others. And then it perpetuates any sort of negativity. It's like it blows it up. larger than life, bigger. Cause most of the time people aren't looking at you. Most people, it's kind of like with comments, 99 positive comments and there's one negative, but the negative sticks out and then it becomes bigger because it is that way for whatever.
You're aware of it too.
Shame.
You're aware of it. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. And if you are at the beginning of your weight loss, it doesn't matter where you're at. I feel like I've worked through so many things, and Sara, I've seen you work through so many things where you seem to talk to yourself so differently. And I know I talk to myself so differently. And that just comes with time. It's overwhelming and it's so tempting to you got to research all of the diets. You got to figure out what you're going to do. And while you're doing that, just do something. Anything, just start doing something. I think it was in this recording, you said that, you had ate the Pop-Tarts and you're like, I'm just doing keto. And that's that was a big thing, to decide to start doing, but at least it was something.
I did something.
Yeah. So,
and I would say once you start, just don't quit, because the only way that you're going to fail is if you stop doing anything. If you don't quit on yourself. I haven't lost, I sure as heck didn't hit my goal in the 2 years. I was hoping to do it in a year and I didn't. And then I didn't do it the next year either. And maybe I'll do it this year. I don't know. It's possible. But one thing over the last 2 years is I never stopped trying. And I don't plan to stop trying. I want the lifestyle change so bad. I want to be healthy. And I don't want to be on a weight loss journey for my whole life. I would like to get to where I'm on a maintenance journey. And if I keep that just in my back pocket, that's what I'm working towards, is something I can maintain for the rest of my life, then I'm not going to stop. And you shouldn't either. And
I want to ask you a question.
None of us should.
And I feel like we've started to wrap up a couple of times and people are probably wondering, this will be the last thing. I promise not to babble on no matter how she answers this question. And you can talk as long as you would like, because I think it's an interesting one. It may take you a second to think about. Think about yourself. You've had the surgery. Ideal situation. What does a day, an average day, not anything special, just an average day in your life? What kind of habits? What do you do? What kind of activities do you engage in 2 years from now?
I really want to be a runner. That's a huge thing for me. I want to be able to run and not stop every 30 seconds. I want to run. So I see myself doing, 5Ks, and maybe, I don't know what comes next, a 10K after a 5K. I don't even know right now, because I've never gotten that far in my life, but I want to be a runner. That's just something I've had in my head. I love it. I love the feeling of wind on my face, being outside, running. I want to run. I know that for sure. I would love for my binge eating to be under control. Physically, I can't do the same thing today. But that's not to say a year or two down the road that it couldn't creep back in. But I want to be in a place where I have tools in my toolbox that are going to help me not do it as often, if at all. I want to have it under control. And I want to be a healthy role model for my kids. I mean, my kids are a little bit older. They're 16 and 12, but I don't think it's ever too late to show them that, if you put your mind to something and you dedicate yourself to it, that you can change your life at any given time. And I have done that in a lot of different ways that I don't necessarily talk about on YouTube. My career path, for one, over the last 3 years has changed tremendously. I've doubled my income just based on my own personal goals and what I wanted to achieve. And so if I can send that message home with my kids, wherever they end up going in the next couple of years, whether that's to college or trade school or whatever they want to do, then I'll consider myself a success pretty much for the rest of my life.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sara, for being willing to share. And I'm grateful for you.
Same. Friends forever.
Okay.
You're stuck with me now.
Love it. I will talk to you next time.
I'll see you real soon. Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that because you're like waving and I'm like, I'm not really going to hang up. I'm not really going to stop. I'm just going to stop recording.
Do you need to do a real closer again?
Be like, I like, what should I say? I don't know. so obnoxious. Thank you so much, Sara. And I will talk to you next time.
Thanks, April.
I am so grateful to have had Sara on the podcast today. She's a delightful person, so well spoken, and I enjoyed chatting with her. I hope that you enjoyed listening to our conversation. Thank you so much for spending part of your day or part of your days with us, depending on how you watched. I like to break podcasts up personally. I am so grateful for you. Thank you for listening to this episode. And I hope that you remember that you are worth it. You are worth figuring out what you need in order to be successful. You are worth doing the work, and it's hard and it sometimes feels lonely. And I hope that by sharing my story and now having a place to share the stories of other people that I admire who have struggled in different ways, I hope that it helps you feel less alone and encouraged. Sending you so much love. I hope that you have a great rest of your week.